Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reverend Matt and I'm the Connectionalist, and today we are going to be reacting to a video from Heliocentric, who is an atheist and who loves religion, loves researching religion, does videos about them. And today it's called This Liberal Church Didn't Suck, which I think is really interesting. He went to a United Methodist church, so I'm going to take a special interest in this. By the way, if you hear popping in the background, it's because I'm recording this on the 3rd of July and people are doing fireworks outside my window, which is awesome. I love fireworks. Just, not when I'm trying to record a video. So let's go ahead and jump right in and see what this guy's got to say.
Down a little bit. Hit record, just doing that, just like so. I know that my roommate loves me because he surprised me with a Jehovah's Witness Bible tract. Fun fact, I have never been to a Kingdom Hall meeting. It's one of the few weird fringe services that I haven't attended yet, but it's on my list. Rest assured. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Atheist Church Audit. I'm your host, Jared. I'm an atheist, and this week, I went to a Methodist church.
I think it's interesting that the idea of the atheist church audit, right? We should be engaging that because we should be caring about what non-religious people and what atheists and, Christians on the edge or de-church Christians, we should be caring about like what resonates with them, not watering down the gospel, but like what are the kind of things that resonate and connect in communicating the gospel with people like this. Because a lot of the church growth movement right now is mega churches that just pull Christians from already established churches away to their new mega church because it's better. It's got, big youth programs and children's programs. All that stuff's great, but it's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. And a lot of them will be like, look how many baptisms we did this week. And it's like, yes, out of those 20 baptisms, maybe one was a first-time profession of faith, but 19 of them were just people from a mainline church who decided to get rebaptized because they don't understand that one baptism for the remission of sin is a historic church teaching and that rebaptism is not a good teaching. We have to be careful about that, right? Rededications of faith are great. It's just we don't need to be rebaptizing people. And so it can look like there's a lot of like new Christians when it's not really what it is. So I think we should be paying attention to stuff like this.
I haven't attended yet, but it's on my list. Rest assured. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Atheist Church Audit. I'm your host, Jared. I'm an atheist, and this week, I went to a Methodist church.
I'm a Methodist. God's a Methodist.
And
I'm a Methodist, God's a Methodist. I think that's a quote. That's a clip from the Jackie Robinson movie where the manager of the team is like, I'm a Methodist and God's a Methodist, which is awesome. A hilarious quote.
Place. Wakefield United Methodist. I visited that church this week.
Oh, praise him. Hallelujah.
Now, Methodists are an interesting bunch. They have had their church splits, just like everyone else, with their liberal denominations and their conservative denominations.
We'll split up.
But generally speaking, Methodists are very...
Yeah, they showed the Global Methodist Church there, which of course is a split off of the United Methodist Church just recently, and the Liberation Methodist Connection, which hasn't really done much of anything. They're a much smaller group. Being a progressive myself, I really wish they would have just stayed in the denomination. But if you want to go do your other thing, I mean, that's fine.
Traditional. And frankly, I associate Methodists with being not very passionate. Not very passionate, I give a little bit of an...
That's not an unfair characterization. It kind of just depends on where you go. You can definitely get the more charismatic side of the denomination, especially internationally. But yeah, a lot of high church stuff and a lot of... I think low energy is like a fair critique that like sometimes like we don't present our high churchness with like a lot of gusto. So I think it's a fair critique.
Insult, but certainly they're very traditional. Like if somebody told me, oh, I'm a Methodist, my immediate thought is, oh, it's because your parents were Methodists. Like I don't see a whole lot of people flying in droves to join the Methodist church. So,
well, that's true with most of the mainline churches. That's true with most churches, right? Like if what usually happens is that a lot of mainline people go either most of them actually grow up and don't go to church at all, but the ones who do, most of them go to like some non-denom mega church where it's mostly consumer and entertainment driven.
So I was very surprised when I showed up to this church this morning and it was packed.
Bro, this is the fullest parking lot of any church in existence.
I literally couldn't find a parking space, and that's never happened, that I had to park not in the church parking lot, literally on the road and walk across the street to the church, which is a good sign, I'm not gonna lie. So I walk inside and they're in the middle of the praise and worship. So let me jump to the chase.
So this is they're singing modern, kind of a blended service, is just very common in Methodism, right? You're going to see a lot of high church liturgical services. You're going to see a lot of low church kind of guitar, praise and worship music, and that seems to be where he's at right now. It's probably kind of a blend between liturgical and modern, contemporary. Like, not sure the term to use.
This is the type of church that I normally rip on.
I wanted to make fun of you.
Let me back up and I'll explain. This is what I would consider to be quintessential suburban Christianity, or even worse, country club Christianity.
The nerve of this guy.
I walk in there and everyone looks like they're about to go to a literal golf course. It was very nice, it was very quaint, but this wasn't a fundamentalist service. The people on the pews weren't clutching the back of their chairs, fretting about the eternal afterlife. This was just very nice and encouraging, and normally when I'm in a service like that, I want to trash it. I always really like people who put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, I get what he's saying is, like, sometimes these blended contemporary services can kind of just feel run-of-the-mill, and they don't have that holiness, that traditional aspect that, like, draws it back. It makes it feel, like, serious, and I kind of get what he's saying, but I'm curious to see, like, what his outcome is, what made this different from previous times he's done that.
Whether that is fundamentalist Muslims, fundamentalist Hasidic Jews, fundamentalist Christians, whatever your stripe or color, I have so much respect and admiration for people who take their philosophy to its most logical conclusion. I'm not always fond of what they do. I don't like the way that they treat this group or that group or some politics they have. But I think deep down, I have a respect for just the idea of sticking to your guns and being true to your principles, especially if you're able to walk the line of being very stern with yourself and your own morality while being gentle to the people around you, and if at the core of your gospel is love. I love the striving and the sincerity and having to work through this
I don't know. I'm sure he's going somewhere with this, but I'm not sure where he's going yet.
giant bundle of mess that is the Bible, and figure out a coherent worldview from these very different 66 books and figure out how to live truthfully and honestly. I love all of that. And to see Christianity relegated to just a social function, just, this is just tradition, we get together as a community, we sing a few songs. Normally that pisses me off. It feels like cultural appropriation. It feels like, hey, this was something that I dedicated my life to, and it's being watered down and belittled into a weekly song and dance that's good for kids, good for...
Yeah, that's kind of my... This is what I hear a lot from non-religious people. They're like, you just took this ancient faith of the God of the universe and you've made it into like a little like country club, like song and dance entertainment thing. And I hear that a lot. And so I'm curious to see what made this different for him.
For adults, who gives a shit? And so when I walk into congregations where it feels like, the gospel's really just... we don't take it super seriously. It's mostly just a tool for us to be kind to one another. I normally roll my eyes.
I mean, that's fair. It's like you don't even believe the thing you say you believe. I think that's the main problem in a lot of progressive churches is like we use the very serious nature of the gospel to like be an inspiration to love and justice, when like that's what it is. But there's also like real metaphysical realities that come with that, right? Jesus is alive, right? Jesus is the hope of our salvation, right? It's not just a story that's supposed to make us kinder to our neighbor, although that is a major piece of it. There are metaphysical realities that go along with faith that often get ignored in progressive circles. And then what happens in conservative circles is they take the gospel super seriously, and then they forget to be inspired to love and appreciate other people and diversity and stuff like that. So the logical conclusion of the extreme end of progressivism is, we don't take the gospel serious enough, and we just kind of let it inspire us towards love and justice. And the other side of conservatism is we take the gospel so seriously, way so seriously, that we end up forgetting some of its core teachings of love and justice, and we end up being mean to people and excluding people and hurting people.
I'm like, yeah, but why? Like, why do you feel the need to plagiarize a religion just to do that? Now, again, that's way too harsh for this particular congregation. I'm just being honest with my thought process when I'm evaluating other Christians.
This is super helpful, by the way. I relish these opinions. I really do, because it helps me understand like what outsiders think about the church.
crap on Methodists too hard. My grandmother, who I love dearly, is a Methodist. My mentor to this day was a Methodist pastor. So I'm not trying to belittle the faith of all of these people. I'm making a very hot take right now, and take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know how to filter myself.
That's a
Just
good thing.
say whatever comes into your mind.
Yeah.
You don't really modulate your inner feelings at all. I'll tell you.
It's a good thing.
And I think
Well, I
this
love
is
Larry David.
genuinely like the first time where I walked into a service and it felt very much like, yeah, this is a social function. We're, doing life together. I hate that fucking phrase. But genuinely, it's
There's the
like,
language
yeah,
again.
we're all coming together. The pastor, she got up on stage and talked about the things that scouts were doing this week. And
Never underestimate the power of like a kind of just nerd pastor who would wear her Girl Scout vest over her alb to like prove a point in a sermon. I think it's authentic when pastors act like themselves, even if it's like a little cringe sometimes. I think it's actually more endearing than the pastors who are like super jacked and ripped and like put on a persona.
And, they're having a blood drive later next week. And this was the first time that I've been to a church that seemed to have more of a social function version of Christianity. And it just seemed good. Like, I love how austere fundamentalist Christianity is.
So it wasn't the music that was drawing him in the worship style. It was more the feeling of the Holy Spirit is what he's feeling, right? The feeling of the Holy Spirit that these people actually care about each other. People can sense that. If your church enjoys being around each other and your church loves each other and actually cares about each other, people can sense that, and they can't always pinpoint what it is, but they can sense it. People can kind of naturally sense. I think that happens in my church right now. We're growing right now. And I think that people just enjoy each other and they love each other and they love the community. And people just kind of can pick that up and pretty quickly without a lot of help.
But, I got to hand it to these people. I don't think
We have, hundreds of thousands of years of like evolution that is like trained humans to like pick up on small like cues, emotional cues, and the way things feel socially in a room, and that's what keeps us safe, right? So people can kind of pick up when people actually care about each other and they're being authentic. Authenticity, so important.
many of these kids are going to grow up with religious trauma. If I put aside my raging Stockholm syndrome for a moment,
Yeah, he basically said a lot of I didn't sense that the Boy Scouts and the kids in there are going to grow up with religious trauma, which a lot of my friends have. And that is, you're not going to get that in United Methodist churches often.
yeah, this doesn't seem all that bad. And then the worship sounded like Bon Jovi, but it felt very much like, hey.
That's not for me. I get it. I get that some churches like that. And if that's authentic to you, that's what you should do, because your authenticity will draw others in. But that clip was awesome. That cutaway clip was hilarious.
These are the musicians in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we want to give them a chance, and we want to,
Sure.
pump them up. And so if the worship leader wants to bring bongo drums on set and play his ukulele, and the guy next to him wants to bring out a harmonica, all three of those things happened. Then what's the harm? And so I'm really hard on myself, and I tend to expect other people to be as well. And so I'm normally very critical when people are kind of laissez-faire. But this service wasn't laissez-faire. It felt very genuine, just not genuine from a point of like, hey, let's just be chill. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah, he sensed genuineness, authenticity. That, if your church can find a way to be authentic where your pastor, like, I try hard, like, your pastor can get up there, make fun of themselves, make a joke about themselves, mess up during a service, be an actual person. That resonates with non-religious people. You're more likely to get, like, our church hasn't blown up in growth from people coming from other churches, although that happens. But we've had a lot of people who were, like, not active Christians, in the last couple of years join, and some of them been baptized. And you can't get that when you're not authentic, because those people are going to pick that up immediately.
Hippie Jesus. It was very sincere with, showing like kindness and compassion and love to people. So this was one of the first churches in North Carolina that I visited that had a female pastor.
So today we are concluding our sermon series called Rooted in Christ.
And she was wonderful.
Yeah,
I loved that
she
they
was good.
had
I could tell
children
she's a
come
good
up
preacher.
and read the Lord's Prayer for the church. And then another kid came up and read the Apostles' Creed,
Yep.
which I love that. More churches should do that. But she was just very gracious with the kids who came up and couldn't figure out how to use the microphone. And it was just very sweet. And her sermon...
What this guy is sensing is this is a community that's actually doing Christianity. They're not coming to consume entertainment. Hello, knock, knock. If anybody's watching this right now and your church does entertainment and the highest value in your church is the production value of the service, you're doing church wrong. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
It wasn't shallow. It wasn't bland. It was actually fairly in-depth. God,
Right.
She quoted Soren Kierkegaard. Come on.
Kierkegaard's a really good philosopher, but I probably wouldn't use Kierkegaard to sermon. That's just me.
Now, I don't know this woman. I don't know her doctrinal statement. I don't know. Maybe she is a fundamentalist. Who knows? But I would wager that she doesn't believe in the inerrancy of Scripture. She's not a fundamentalist.
As a pastor in the United Methodist Church, that's a decent assumption.
In that sense. And it's easy for me to get, all deconstructy and nihilistic-y and just hack away at everything and say like, yeah, well, why not just throw the baby out with the bathwater? Like, you don't need a Bible at that point if it's not literally true.
I reserve the right to go back to Genesis.
Yes, but why don't you then talk about moral and spiritual problems as you wish to talk about them? How does it help to go back to the...
Should I start a USA chant right now? You hearing that? Holy moly, that is like literally right outside my window. Okay, we're just gonna continue on. I'm just gonna mute.
to what somebody wrote in whatever it was, 800 BC.
And I think this was like, I don't know, it was the first time that something gave pause to my cynicism and made me kind of reconsider like, yeah, like, are these people really hurting anyone? Is it really that big of a deal?
No, they're
As
not.
an aside, interesting tidbit on female pastors. I think in the modern world, female pastors have gotten a bad rap from people like Amy Semple McPherson.
And he wound up in a blaze of glory.
Catherine Kuhlman.
The rest of the prophecy will be fulfilled.
Straight up,
That's some like Sith Lord stuff, dude. That's scary.
they were weirdos. Also, Catherine Kuhlman makes a cameo in my song Phrygia. Go and check it out. Now, in the ancient world, female pastors and female leadership in the church kind of tapered off right around the 2nd century. And that was largely due to the Montanists. Montanists were kind of like a proto-Pentecostal movement. They were super charismatic. There's some evidence to suggest that they spoke in tongues. They followed a prophet named Montanus. And Montanus was a weirdo. And so, the church kind of retroactively excommunicated him a couple centuries later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I completely agree with that. I think female leadership was phased out of the church because the apostles were gone and patriarchal culture. I mean, that was going to happen. It's kind of like John Wesley being super anti-slavery and then he dies and then the Methodist Church is like, actually, we can do slavery, right? John Wesley's dead, right? Like that stuff just happens.
Later, but with him, he had his henchmen, a prophetess named Priscilla and Maximilla. And when Christians started saying, hey, all this like weird prophecy stuff and speaking in tongues and like words of knowledge, words of wisdom or whatever, yeah, that's kind of weird and we don't really want to do that stuff. Because Montanus had female leadership in his church, it kind of got a bad taste in people's mouth. It's like, ooh, female leadership? That's what the Montanists do. So we're not going to do that anymore. Also, my song Phrygia is about Montanus.
Maybe God was speaking through you.
I'm very confused right now. I'm not sure what he's talking about. I guess he does music, like heavy metal music about religion. I don't know.
But your tone was out of bed.
So go and listen to it. As far as female pastors go, I mean, I haven't listened to a lot of them, but this woman rocked it. Yeah, I don't think I would hesitate to have this woman as my pastor. She seemed like a genuinely good leader. Something that I just wish I had data on was like the actual outcomes of these congregants. And this is, ironically, it's only knowledge that God knows. But I want to know, like, how many people in this church versus that church are going to cheat on their wives? How many people in this church versus that church are going to cheat?
That is data you could never get. You just could never get something like that. I get why he's like, I want that to see if there's like better discipleship outcomes, but it's hard to know. And that's really hard to measure.
On their taxes. Like, that would be really, really useful data to me. And I'm just curious, like, yeah, which congregation is more likely to bring about healthy, functioning members of society who aren't awful? I'm sure there is research out there. If you know any of it, list it in the comments for me and I'll take a look. But yeah, this genuinely just felt like, hey, maybe all this is true, maybe it's not, but we're coming together and we're hoping and believing that it is. And in the meantime, let's be really kind to each other and let's be honest.
I would say most people in there believe that it's actually true. They're not like hoping that it's true. They believe that it's true.
And good and truthful and all that jazz. So Wakefield, congratulations. You're the only progressive, I don't even know if I can call them progressive church, but the only liberal church that I've ever been to that has given me pause to my cynicism regarding progressive liberal Christianity. Well done. I'm going to give this church 4 out of 5 Archbishops of Canterbury, which is ironic because the Methodist Church has no affiliation to the Archbishop of Canterbury. My name is Jared. I'm an atheist. Go to church. All right.
Really interesting perspective. I think kind of the main takeaway I have from this is that how the importance of authenticity and genuineness, the importance of like not worshiping the God of like production value in your church is kind of a surefire way that you can communicate authenticity. Like, be humans, make mistakes. That's okay. Don't be sloppy, right? Excellence is important, but like communicating authenticity, letting children do things in service like that, those things are super important. And so it's always good to get something like this. So make sure you go like and subscribe to Heliocentric. Looks like a really interesting perspective. At the end, he was like, I'm an atheist and you should go to church, which is just, hey, he's doing more evangelism than a lot of Christians are. So I find that very interesting. So make sure you go like and subscribe to his channel. Seems really cool. And if you like the commentary today, make sure you go like and subscribe to my channel. It's literally the best thing you can do for it. So I'm River Matt, and I'm the Connectionalist. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.